Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing? Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. Welcome. You are watching Social Work Sessions. And this is a series that we're doing around here, around the Core Inspirations channel. My name is Melanie, and I am your social work development coach. This channel is really all things about social work. Like I said, we're doing a series around here where we're coming on YouTube live each Tuesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, just to talk about different topics as it relates to your school and academic journey, as well as it relates to your professional journey. So as always, without further ado, I'm going to give a couple of minutes for people to come in because the time now is 8:31. So I'll give about 2 minutes before we get into today's topic. But I will let you know today's topic. We're talking about macro social work. Macro social work. What is it and what does it look like? So I know that there's quite a few content out, I would definitely say, within the YouTube community that talks about social work, that talks about macro social work. But I have been in a role for a while now, and I wanted to kind of express it based upon my actual expertise in my particular roles that I've been in, and I wanted to just kind of like give my 2 cents about it. I think it's something that we definitely need to talk about because, as we know, social workers are able to practice on numerous levels, be it micro, mezzo, or macro, and or right, because we are so versatile in the services that we're able to render to our customers and to our patients and to our clients, consumers, whatever your agency or particular organization calls the residents or consumers that they service. So like I said, I will give it a couple of minutes before we get into today's live social work session. Hopefully everybody's had a wonderful day. Hopefully you are able to relax for a little bit. Hopefully so. And while we're waiting and give people time and space to come on in, I am definitely going to do a sound check just to make sure everything is good to go. But yes, I feel like the people that are viewing, you already know. If you're definitely new joining me, welcome. You can definitely comment below. Let me know if you're a BSW student or MSW student. I would love to know. Let me know where you're at in your program. Are you about to graduate? Are you just starting the program? Are you inquiring about becoming a social worker? Myself, I was originally a non-traditional student who went back to school and pursued my BSW, MSW, and my current LCSWA. So I am currently in a clinical role. I am a mental health therapist, and I love that. And I'm also working for a nonprofit, and I love that as well. So give a couple of minutes for people to chime on in. But yeah, tonight we're talking about macro social work. What is it? Like, what is this? What is it? What is the concept? What does it include? What does it detail? And then what does it look like? What does a macro position look like? So today, just to kind of give you an overall agenda of what we're going to be talking about and the flow of what we're going to talk about, I'm pretty much going to be getting into what exactly a macro social worker is and what some of the jobs or roles as it relates to macro practitioners. I'm going to be talking about some of the macro concentration roles. And then I'm going to end the live tonight just pretty much talking to you about an actual role, like I said, that I started off in really post-grad. So for those who do not know, I graduated my BSW in 2017, and I graduated with my MSW in 2019. So I have been in several roles within this nonprofit, and I'm going to talk about my initial role when I first started with the agency. So I wanted to give some details before and then give you an example. Like I like to be able to give content that really is applicable to something that I can definitely, attest to, something that I've been there, done that, seen that, or experienced that. So I definitely try to stay in my lane with things that I am privileged to know and understand or have experienced. So without further ado, we're going to move right along in the social work sessions. So, macro social work, what is it? What does it look like? And I'm going to try to make sure that I'm staying and keeping my face in the camera so that way you can hear and see me and and get to understand what I'm saying. So just to kind of like give you just an overall definition or just a synopsis of like what it can house or what it, includes. A social worker that's actually practicing within the macro level is looking at change within the community level, organizational level, or business level. So it's looking at change at a larger scale. So it can sometimes start at the local level, go to the state level, federal, national, and international level. They're assessing and investigating social problems on a more broadened scale. Like I said, it's on a larger scale. And it really relates to how they look at social problems, social injustices. They look at those particular problems on a larger scale. So what they do is, it may be a particular issue, like I'll say homelessness for an example. Homelessness. So that directly affects people, individuals at the micro level. It affects families and groups of people on the meso level, but it also affects society as a whole. So anyone that's actually pursuing or looking to pursue a macro position really wants to get influence, taking the voices of the people that may be at the local level and bringing those concerns and putting a voice to a lot of those concerns that people at the local level are impacted by, and bringing about change, creating programs and policies and procedures to implement so that it trickles down and it affects people as a whole. So taking probably, like I said, social justice issues, any type of problematic issues, and really trying to look at it from a systemic viewpoint of what ways that you can come up with solutions, interventions, processes, and procedures as it relates to policy change, any type of positive change that can be implemented at the top level, at the higher level. Be it, like I said, you're working with organizations, you're working with communities, it could be within government sectors, it can be affiliated, elected officials, at the higher level that's going to bring about change that's going to trickle down and affect everyone. So it looks at problems from a systemic viewpoint as society as a whole. So hopefully that makes sense. You're looking at not just solving problems individually, face-to-face, direct practice, or one-on-one, not within just families, but you're taking individual matters, and you're bringing all of those things and you're bringing it to a higher level to problem solve. And a lot of times different organizations do greater work to see what they can do for preventative measures, to really see what are some of the societal issues that havoc communities, that havoc neighborhoods, that havoc particular races, ethnicities, genders, so different types of groups of people. And that is really what macro social work is in a nutshell, like an overall view of what it is. And I made some more notes just to kind of like, bring it clear. Macro social work also focuses on developing policies, like I've stated, process and procedures and plans, interventions. So when I say interventions, I'm meaning like coming up with solutions, different techniques and strategies that can be implemented at the higher level to bring about some change. So if, like I said in my example with homelessness, what type of programs can be put together? What type of programs can be partner with another program? So it may be one sector that provides shelter, homeless shelter, for certain people that may qualify for a particular bed or fit within a certain eligibility requirement. So they may only fix or solve one problem of homelessness, which is for people that are homeless and maybe it's a men's shelter. But what about women and children? So you may have another partner that comes in and they provide it for women and children. So people can refer or they can partner together to combat the homelessness population. So that's what I'm talking about. Sometimes organizations collaborate with other agencies and with other companies and other businesses to bring about even greater change to impact society as a whole, even in a greater way. So that's what I mean when I say interventions. But it really is for the growth and to overall increase a positive change at the community, state, and international levels. So this is a person or persons that are really versed and really just like, you know what, I really want to do change that's really going to impact people in a great way. Now, there's always a portion a level of practice that people may prefer over the other. You know, some people may prefer individual and direct services over mezzo, or macro over mezzo or micro. It really depends on what your preference is. I will always tell you to really look and ask people questions. Like if they're in a role that you find yourself interested in, I will always tell you to go to that person, seek out, additional supervision if you're already receiving, if you're a student. But if not, research, and then research that, couple that research with actually talking to a person in that role. I think a lot of qualitative information can be given and really help you get some insight about what a particular role really consists of. So definitely someone in macro, and it's one of those things that some people, it's really a broad arrangement of positions. And I will say this is one thing I definitely notice about macro level positions. They're not always going to be titled social work or macro social work positions. There's going to be a gamut of different names, and I'm going to get into some of those names at the middle portion of the video. But I just wanted to let you know that sometimes if you're searching for, macro level social work positions, you may not see social worker in the title or a title of that position at all. So it's not only fitted in within a box of social work. It is very much social work practices and procedures, and you definitely would have, benefit from having those skill sets, whether it, is psychology based or social work based. But it's not only going to be, advertised or marketed for just social workers only. The names of the positions may vary, but the work overall is the same. Okay, and depending on that level of macro work, when I say it's the same. So macro social work, they implement more systematic changes. Like I was telling you, it's more systemic. So they're looking at what is the ongoing issues that's happening and what can we do at the top. Plans and different types of policies that can put in place, different types of acts that can be put in place. And we're dealing with that now, right? Like the Affordable Care Act. How at the top, the government has made a decision, and they have made a decision based upon the economic situations that most Americans are found in, and it's impacted individuals, families, groups of people, but also as society as a whole. So at the top level within our government here in the U.S., they've decided to render those economic or stimulus payments, right? So that is something that's trickled down to individuals. Now, some people are eligible for them, and I want to say this is like a third phase of it, so they've changed some of the requirements here and there, but it's trickled down from the top to the bottom. Something that was enforced, that was put in place, that was put in law, that was passed, and then it was granted, and then it's affected, and then rendered to the whole society as a whole. So that's another little example if you're looking and trying to kind of connect to see, okay, what is it that macro social workers do? So we implement changes, and then you bring your expertise to the table, So sometimes I noticed within the role that I was doing, there is really a lot of time multidisciplinary in teams where you have people from different walks of professions, different walks of life. It depends on what particular issue or problem that you're actually combating, or having a meeting about, to really just kind of go over what can be done as it relates to solutions. It depends on what the particular problem is or what the social injustice is. So different people that are experts within that field and have different backing and education and life experiences, they may all come from different sectors of that, but collaboratively coming together to really strategize and to plan and put places and policies and plans and programs in place to really see how an actual service can be rendered to an actual population, to an actual group of people, to individuals. So they're trying to make a plan that's going to affect everyone, and then they want to make sure that you're strategizing to see, hey, if it works this way, what happens? If it works that way, what happens? So you get to kind of like go through that whole process and see how it works. And like I said, I'm going to talk more about that in my particular role. But let me make sure that I'm paying attention to the chats as well. So give me one moment. I want to make sure that I'm paying attention to that. Hey, hey, hey. I am well, Miss Rosie. Hopefully you are as well. How was your day today? How was your day? I don't know if you have time to watch a whole live today, but yeah, thank you for always joining, Rosie. You are always here. I appreciate that. Hopefully you had a good day. Hopefully it wasn't too tiring at all. I myself had a pretty laid back day overall today, to the point I was almost like, okay, what else I need to be doing? I need to be doing something. Maybe I'm forgetting something. And I see other people are coming into the chat. Yes, tonight we're talking about macro social work. What is it and what does it look like? So I really started off just pretty much explaining what macro social work is, what it really encompasses, and I really kind of highlighted how it's changed at the greater level. As it relates to communities, changes within the community, organization, businesses, and it can be within the local, like within your local city. It can be within your state that you live in. It can be within federal, like I said, like the federal government, within our nation as a whole, and then even international. There's some social workers who practice internationally. So just don't, try to put yourself in a box or think the work that we do is only privy to people that are residents and citizens of the United States of America, because it definitely transcends over to different regions and areas of the country and out of the country. So definitely know that. So let me pull it up here. She said, good, exhausted. I'm enjoying the topic for the night. Okay, I appreciate that. Especially since I'm used to the micro section of social work. Yes, I think so too. I was really just trying to, because I'm always trying to come up with some things or topics for the social work sessions that I think that would be really, really informative. And I was saying, you know what, I haven't really talked about my clinical background, so I did that previously. And I was saying I haven't really talked about the macro position. So I was talking about a position that I originally started working. I'm still with the same organization, but I've moved within different roles within an organization. So tonight, towards the end, I'm going to kind of like, debrief the role and some of the responsibilities that I had in that role, just to kind of give some examples of what macro social work is. Because I think sometimes it's one of those things, because it's so broad, people can be like, okay, they don't really have anything tangible to kind of like, okay, that's what it is and that's what it's not. So I just wanted to kind of give people some insight and just some different ideas just to consider when you're thinking about macro social work. Because sometimes it's something that you may see every day, but you don't really connect the dots to knowing, you know what, that is changing, making positive change and influence on higher levels, which causes greater impact, So it really just depends on what you want to do. And there are social work programs that particularly have that area of practice if you're wanting to do macro. I know when I went, because like I said, my area of practice was cultural competency, but we also I took quite a few courses. I want to say a couple of courses on macro social work. It was then when I found about community development. And I was like, I think I like this. I think I like this. So I didn't really know. I mean, when you hear about community development, you're like, okay, something dealing with it in community. People define words by saying what the word. So it's developing a community. Yeah, community, but they don't really sometimes have the insight of what that role is. So hopefully I can debunk some of that tonight and just kind of get you a little bit more insight about something that you may have not known, or if you knew or you do know, maybe you can get some more insight about it. But another thing I put it here, I wanted to definitely make sure I notated, it magnifies small and private matters, and I'm talking about macro social work. What is it, what it looks like? It magnifies small and private matters and views problem solving from a more heightened lens to form plans, prevention measures, and additional solutions that affect the entire humanity. So it helps large groups of people indirectly. So like for a clinical role, right? You're directly working with someone. You're working with someone with their plan, with their goals, with their treatment goals, and you're helping them work towards certain goals within that treatment plan. And you're helping them to be able to manage their mental health symptoms, and you're giving them coping skills and coping mechanisms, providing all different types of interventions within that individual one-on-one person type thing. Sometimes you may bring in different parts of the family to have different sessions, but it's ultimately either micro or mezzo. You're really kind of working on that one-on-one direct. So it's directly affected. What the person is telling you, you're hearing, you're processing it, then you're telling them, they're hearing and they're processing it. You're seeing, they're coming to see you each week, bi-weekly or monthly, depending on how often you're meeting with your clients. Is direct relationship. You see them, they see you. You get accustomed to each other's schedule. That is direct practice. But macro doesn't necessarily practice as directly, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't have impact. Sometimes the impact is indirect. So they're not seeing you face to face, but they're looking at a whole problem and they're looking at it at a bigger level. So it's impacting a whole society for different issues that may havoc a particular, like I said, population or race, a group of people, or a particular region. And it's not directly impacting them, it's indirectly impacting them because they're not face to face, but overall, based upon the policies, based upon the access to resources, based upon positive change in the community, that's how that person is being affected by it, but just not directly. So hopefully that makes sense. Definitely, Rosie, let me know if it's any questions that you may have about macro social work or anything you want to add, anything that you want to add, like within your time of being a student and about to graduate next month. Is it anything that you want to add about macro social work? I'll definitely lend that time for you to, chime in on that, because I think everyone has their own kind of concept exactly of what it is, And like I said, when I took that course about macro social work, I think some people was more turned off by it because they really didn't have a really full understanding of it. But it's pretty much sometimes things that you see people doing all the time that you may not have no idea that they're doing. Okay? So let's see here. Now we're going to talk about, like I said, it helps on larger groups of people. It's on a larger scale. But like I said, what does those roles look like? So I definitely did do a little research because I wanted to make sure that I came prepared. And I wanted you all to have a little insight about exactly what some of those macro roles involved. So just to let you hear just a little bit about it, these are a list, and I have quite a few on here, not too much, but I want you to listen to just the names and the titles. And like I said, again, you're not necessarily always going to hear social worker role or macro social work or social worker that does macro social work. You're going to actually see that there's going to be different, and it's going to be a various amount of different titles. So the first one was nonprofit administrator and leadership. So there may be positions that may be advertised, there may be job descriptions that may have, hey, we're looking for a leadership who's an administrator for nonprofit organizations. Another one could be called a policy researcher, social work researcher, because we know research is definitely done within a greater, larger scale. A lot of times research, they really kind of get to the source of a matter, of a particular problem, of a particular concern. Like right now, I'm sure with COVID going on right now, COVID-19, the coronavirus, there's a lot of research, especially when it first hit back in 2019, as it came up a little bit, and 2020, in March of 2020, when it really just came mainstream, a lot of research was being conducted, and it still is. So please be, mindful of that. Even with the different vaccines, there's research and data that's being collected with that because it's done on a higher level. So definitely know that macro social work, even as it relates to the health field and the health actual region of work, within that particular profession, is definitely and highly needed. And I will say this too, I know a lot of macro social work positions are very competitive. They have very competitive rates. So if you're looking for something, that's something that you feel like, well, you know what, let me look at it. Look at the state that you're in, and you can put some of these roles in, some of these macro concentration roles: nonprofit, administration, and leadership, policy researcher, social work researcher, grant writer. So a lot of times with the nonprofits, they'll have somebody that may be within their team or within their agency that they go to do a lot of the grants that goes out to the community. So it's a lot that goes into it. So you may see that person, they may be over a particular department within the agency, but their role primarily is to find the funding and the sources. And sometimes, definitely like in the role that I was in when I first started off, and a lot of times the funding, a lot of times people are actually paid. So employers are brought in because of grant money. So they hire people on to the agency, and then they pay them payroll. They pay that particular case manager or a particular social worker. They pay their salary out of particular grants. And then the remaining goes for the different other allocations for the actual program or the grant or whatever that program or policy is designed to be. But actual people get paid out of grants. So that's why a lot of times people talk about funding, and a lot of times when you hear nonprofits, you hear them talk a lot about funding and money, because the sources of income, they have to definitely make sure that they have a flow of funds coming in to fund the different initiatives that they have at that particular agency. Because if they're saying, if they have like a youth group that they're working with, and they get funds from several sources, and then for whatever reason from one year, maybe they're like maybe two or three primary financial sources who committed and actually gave funds, decided not to, or for whatever reason couldn't, then some of the services that that agency provided to the youth may be limited, or even maybe had to end. So you have to think about that. The funding is definitely correlating to what services they're going to be able to render to support people. So that's another thing. Some other macro initiatives or titles, I'll say, or job roles is program evaluator, program planner, and a program. Let's go back to the program evaluator. So program evaluations are something that macro social workers do. Like we can use the same example for a youth organization. So say if a person has a youth organization and they have tutoring for students, they have also they have like an agency for like talent acquisition to help prepare you for the job market and when they get jobs and know what resume writing looks like. And then they have like a poetry group where children are able to express themselves, and they have different authors and different poets come out. Like that's that whole particular organization that someone's came up with, right? So then if they're doing that, and then they also have like a reading program that they collaborate with different schools within the actual area to help boost the actual reading literacy programs where they can increase testing scores and help children with their academics. A person may want to say, you know what, hey, we're doing really, really good in the talent acquisition position where we're helping them learn the skill sets of, working, but we need more funding. Like something seems to be going on with our literacy program where a lot of people are volunteering, but it seems like that really portion of our organization is really not catching on. They will hire on someone that's a program evaluator who actually will go in and it will evaluate the actual program. So they're kind of like take apart and dissect some of the actual programs, looking at the mission statement, looking at the services that are rendered, and then look to see what is aligned with the vision and what they're anticipating the service and the company to do. And they'll compare and contrast what they're doing. They'll look at maybe some ways they could possibly save. So they really go in and they open the agency up into seeing what are some of the necessary functionings of the agency, to see if they are functioning, or if they are functioning, ways that they can do even better than what they are, especially if they're having an area that's really not high performance or is really lacking within a program. Sometimes hiring on a person to do program evaluation to kind of give an overview of different things they can do, it kind of gives them additional insight. So those are things that you definitely can think of too. And I know I'll never forget when I first heard it, this was a position that one of my professors had made me aware of when I was in grad school. And I want to say she was like, the starting salary for it was like $90K. And I was like, what is a program evaluator? What do they do? Because a lot of times people, they put social work roles and positions in one box. But again, we practice on numerous levels, be it micro, meso, or macro. So you have to know what particular area of practice that you feel like is most suited for you, and in your trajectory within your career it may change. You may start off by doing direct practice, you may start off by working with clients one-on-one, but then you may want to kind of get behind the scenes. You have some social workers who don't even really engage with the people population, but they engage more at the macro levels, maybe working with universities, conducting researches, writing articles, providing validity to some of the research that are being conducted. So there's so much, it's so much variety. That's one thing I love about the profession of social work, that you can do so many different things. So that's one of my different things. Hey Jay, I see you on here. I appreciate the support, babe. I appreciate the support. Yes. Yep. And you said, what did you say, Rose? You said, I agree. I think I explored macro social work in one of my courses during the summer. I don't remember it, but I believe most shy away from it because it's the business side of social work. Oh, that's a good way to put it, Rosie. That is definitely a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it. Yeah, because it seems like it can be so complicated. It seems like it's a lot of steps to it. But if you work for an agency to kind of get a feel for like a role, like I said, I'm going to go into the role that I first was hired for when I first got out of grad school. And I didn't initially think it was a macro social work position. I really didn't. But from the work that we were doing, I was like, you know what, this is macro social work. And I was just like taken away by it because I was one of those people, like, I didn't really connect the dots with some of the social work practices. So I definitely would agree with that. You said, but I believe most shy away from it because it's the business side of social work. I would say that's definitely a good way of looking at it. Because like I said, like say even now we can use an example of a therapist, right? So I'm a mental health therapist. And right now, I don't have my own private practice. But when I get my own private practice, when that time comes, then I'll be doing work. I'll be having a business within a community. And I may do community development work with the agency. I may be doing outreach. I may be doing different things within the community. And then maybe actually even talking to my local and my elected officials about some of the disparities that I see within my practice, within my community, and I may help to bring about change within the policy area. So I'm telling you, it's one of those things that kind of connects the dots, but people don't always really see them as, oh, that's what that is. Oh, that's what that is, you know? So I like how you said that with the business side, because there's always a business side to a business, to an organization. Your role may not be doing that particular job, but best believe someone has, you know, different roles and responsibilities to keep it going, because all parts have to jointly connect so that each supply of itself, so that the organization stays afloat and it stays afloat to render the services that are needed within the community. So I would definitely say that. So yeah, let me also some additional roles. Like I said, I already talked about a list of macro level social work roles as it relates to macro concentrated roles. We talked about program evaluator. Program planner is another one that you definitely want to look out for. Community and or organization developer. So some roles may be considered or classified as community developer or organizational developer. Fundraising or a fundraiser, people are always looking for that. I definitely see that within the nonprofits a lot of times. They're needing people who are versed in those particular skills. And I say, give it a test by looking at some of the job descriptions, like I said. But I would say with me, sometimes the job descriptions can, you know, show you a lot of validity of what that role may be encompasses of. But taking that job description and then asking someone that actually does that role, it doesn't even have to be within the same profession. You can look at the job description and then maybe talk to someone else at a different agency than what the from the job that's originally posted. You can see that job description and maybe contact somebody else, you know, that has that particular title or close to that role, and just ask them like what their day-to-day is. And when you hear it and when you look at that, you'll be able to process it and it'll probably connect the dots for you. So I definitely would suggest that, and I always encourage people to actually, you know, talk with other people. Another role you'll see or hear within the macro sector of having a job as a macro social worker is policy analyst, where they do sometimes a lot of advocacy work. A union organizer, that is another macro role. A program developer, or a community developer. Like I said, community development. And then the last one I have here is a politician and or a legislative aid. So again, that's within the government, elected officials, or working as a state representative or somewhere within the government sector. So those are just a gamut of a variety of different roles, titles that you can kind of like find and look up. You could Google any of those particular titles that I've given you and look at some of the education requirements, look at some of the skill sets or the strengths that you would definitely need to have within that role, and it'll give you further insight. It would definitely give you further insight. So now we're going to go right into the role as I started off. Like I said, I started off as a macro level social worker, and I did not even really know. So the work that I was doing it was within the housing sector. We were providing resources to people that were needed to secure housing. So as of when I first came in, I was in collaboration with two other organizations. So my agency was responsible for providing the housing piece of it, to provide housing resources to people. Another agency was responsible for actually providing resources outside of the housing needs, so that this person that, or the persons that were selected to be a part of the program, they receive wraparound resources, because people have more than one need at a time. And though they may have greater need for some of the essential and basic needs, and y'all know that, right? Maslow hierarchy of needs, y'all already know about all of that, right? But the shelter is a big need. So initially meeting people where they're at with that primary need, and then once they get housed, then we wrap them around additional services and resources that they can utilize and implement in their lives to enhance the overall life of them and their children. So I initially came in and I was so excited, because I was like, okay, I'm working with not one organization, but I'm working with two organizations, and I came in as a third portion. So it was a total of 3 organizations, including my organization, and we would have monthly meetings, and sometimes it could be, it was kind of like monthly meetings or quarterly meetings, but as we got more into it, because this was actually a grant-funded program. So you had another person that another organization who provided funding and resources for the whole entire program. So like I said, each organization had its role and part and play in the whole entire program. So even though my organization was coming for with the housing needs, the other one was coming for and bringing towards case management and resources skills, and the other one was providing the funding. All of us simultaneously sat down. So I was able to look at and see budgets within the whole program, how much was allocated for the program. I was able to look at the duration, how long participants would be eligible to be in the program. And I also helped with compiling a lot of the policy and process and procedures as it related to the intake pieces of it. So what does the intake forms are going to look like? I helped compile some of those things, and some of those things had already been done previously, and some of them was omitted, and some of them was revised and updated. But I was able to walk through to see, okay, what would the intake piece process detail? And we will all have meetings, and everyone would give their input and their insight. I worked very close in relation to other case managers at the time. I've worked very close with program managers who were responsible for managing a particular program. And I worked in response to supervisors, grant writers, and I worked in right alongside with a lot of different people from the finance department, who's actually responsible for the maintaining of the budget, allocating for where all funds are being spent, all funds that are being allocated towards the program, whether it be transportation, whether it be different forms and funds that we provided to our actual participants of the program. So it was very, very detailed. I had not been a part of anything like that before, so I was really, really taken away by it. It was something that was always fresh. It was something new, and I loved that. It was something that I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like, I get a front seat at the table to really kind of sit and see how this program is going to be rolled out. We went over the eligibility requirements, and then we also had to make sure that our policies and procedures adhere to the national policies and procedures. So we just couldn't just make up our own rules and just say, okay, well, this is going to be the process, this is going to be procedures. We had to make sure that it aligned with the overall policies within our actual national our overhead leadership. We had to make sure that we did it at the local level, but we had to make sure that it aligned from the national level. So again, that higher level of impact on a larger scale of influencing, impacting, bringing greater change to people that are at the local or lower levels. And it started off with policies and procedures. So I really, really enjoyed that. Like I said, some of the roles we did, we went over the intake paperwork and policies and procedures. We determined eligibility. We determined the number of people that were going to be admitted in the program. And then some of those criterias. We also conducted a little research. It was a little bit of research that was conducted because, like I said, this program had been on, I want to say, a year prior to me coming on board. It had been for a year, I want to say, or a couple or close to a year prior to me coming on board. So they were able to kind of get some research from the previous participants to know what things to kind of amend or, reposition for the new particular participants coming up. I already mentioned the staff salary. Some of the staff salary was actually paid throughout the actual grant of the program. And the wraparound resources, those were things that we collaborated with. We definitely collaborated with. And it was just really, really good. And there was requirements that had to be done, like what they call semi-annual, where you had to, within the mid portion of the year, you had to report out like, hey, this particular program, how is it going? What's working? What's not? How many people have received assistance? How many people have benefited program? How many people have came into the program? Have people moved on throughout the program? And then you'll do that twice a year to kind of say, hey, this is my midpoint mark and all of the data that I have here. And then this is the endpoint mark, all of the data that I have there. And then I had a chance to work at that macro level where I sat at the table and gathered and was there with finance people, managers, supervisors, and case managers. But then I also had the role to actually work with them directly. So I was able to see the bigger portion of it, but I was also able to also work with them directly. So I met the family. Some of the other people, the higher up managers and supervisors, they wasn't necessarily working with the families. They never actually, some of them never even seen the families before. But I was privileged to do both. So I was able to see the families, I was able to see the children, I was able to see the participants, I was able to, go in their homes. So it was really a really rewarding role. Really, really a rewarding role. I have been, new to so much of that. So sitting down, like I said, with different stakeholders within the community is something that it was just really a good experience. So I don't know if that really helps, to really let you understand overall, like, oh, okay, this, I didn't think it would be that way, So you're able to kind of get some additional insight when you kind of like hear what a person, did from day to day. But I really thoroughly enjoyed that program. And then, like I said, I later transitioned on to a different program, since then. Well, actually, 2 more programs since then. But I enjoyed that, I enjoyed that. So I'm the type of person, I may be in one role, but I'm always thinking and learning and looking out for other things because I like to learn. Like I truly am a person, like the profession that I've chose, social work, is something that I enjoy. So the work that I do, a lot of times I'm always interested to know, I know my role and I want to learn my role and I do learn my role, but I'm also interested in knowing what happens before things come to me and what happens after things have passed from me. I like to be able to see the full circle of a process, especially as it relates to clients. I like for them, I like to be able to know the process and procedures that my clients and customers have to go through, be it calling in and inquiring about the program, determining if they're going to be eligible for it, and then just so I can know and be abreast of what my clients' experiences is. But yeah, we have a couple of more minutes. The time now is 9:14. And I see some people have definitely came in the chat. So I'm going to leave it open for just a little bit. Just a little bit. We are going to be ending at 9:30 tonight. But I'm going to leave it open just in case you have any questions. Any questions about social work? Any questions about your social work program? Or any questions about tonight's topic matter? We're talking about macro social work. What is it? And what does it look like? So I'll leave it open if anyone has any questions. Macro social work. And I think, like I said, I think it's one of those things once you look up and you talk to someone about it and ask them like, hey, let me talk with you a little bit more. What do you do every day? Or what's some of the main components of your job? What does that detail? Do you like your job? You know, what are some of the most frustrating things about your job? Or what are some of the most challenging things? Don't just ask all the cute and, cute and cuddly things. Ask them like, what do not like about your role, And I think that really motivates you and gives you some validity to say, you know what, I think I might try this, or the same for me, Or you may take that, or you may ask 2 or 3 people, because I think a lot of times too, when you talk with people in different levels of in their roles, it lends to different insight, and then you can kind of compile and see which way you want to go with it, because each role may lend to a certain responsibility, but they may be limited in their responsibilities in their role. So I think someone at the front line, mid-level, and then higher up, I think really being able to kind of like look at that to really give you a really broad view of what that particular role details. I want to make sure I refresh over here to look into the chats over here. But yeah, like I said, I didn't initially know going in that was definitely like a macro level social work position. So I was like, okay, this is something cool. And I'm trying to think some things that I liked about my role, because I'm telling you all to talk to other people, but things that I liked about that role, I really enjoyed seeing the progress that the families were able to make, and seeing that I was able to sit at the table and know how much funds this program was afforded for, and know the processes and procedures with it, and knowing the policies, of the program. And some of the policies, we had to kind of go over that to know we was compiling that intake piece so that they know the standards and the rules and the regulations. So we was able to kind of walk them through the policies, what they could do, what they couldn't do, and what some of the necessary steps that they had to take. So it was like literally creating a program. Like I really, really enjoyed it. And like I said, I didn't initially create it from scratch, because it had already been, I want to say, rendered the year prior to me coming on board. But there was definitely some additional changes that had to be made throughout the new grant. So I really, really enjoyed it, and just being able to see, large amounts of funding. That was my first time experiencing that. So I was like, wow, this is awesome. And I would say some of the things that I didn't, that I found challenging, or I really felt difficult, was sometimes with people that were actually found eligible to be in the actual program, they really didn't sometimes take full advantage of it, and people are at different places in their lives. But I really felt like a lot of the resources that we were providing, they were just really second to none. And the opportunity for people to be able to get assistance where they had limited resources or barriers to housing, they were flooded with resources. They were really flooded with resources, and some, like I said, took advantage of them, and some didn't. So that was always kind of like one of the disadvantages, the challenges. And then sometimes people being in the same situation at the end of the program that they were when they first started, And sometimes, situations happen, and it happens that way, But it was a very insightful role for me. Very new and fresh. Like I said, I just loved it. I really, really loved it. And it just taught me a lot about the community. It taught me about the work that I'm in. It taught me about this particular population. It allowed me to lend more into what that population kind of like, some of their social problems, to really kind of what it was made up of, And I really enjoyed, my favorite part too, I love the collaborative work. So me and the other person from another agency, we were partnered together to go out, and sometimes we did home visits. But we did home visits together, and we compiled, and we strategized and supported one another. So I really, really liked that. It was a unique program. It was a unique initiative, and it was very flexible. It didn't come with a lot of stipulations for some of the participants. They really was not required to do a lot of different things to be in the program, or to maintain and stay in the program. And so it really gave them a lot of leeway to really kind of do what they wanted to do, and take full advantage of resources that was given to them. So I really, really enjoyed it. And the person that I was with, she was really versed in a lot of the work. So it was really good to have someone that I can kind of talk to and kind of ask questions and brainstorm with. And the program managers and they were like really excellent too, because even though you're at the table and there's different roles, it was just everyone was needed. Everyone was needed. Their insight was needed. We did like a lot of, like I said, the front end, and we was a part of the table with a lot of the decisions that were being made. And I really, really loved and enjoyed the development of that program. So I was just saying, you know what, I don't even think I've ever shared that. So like I said, I try to come up with relevant content to talk about, especially if I have had experience or expertise in a particular topic matter. I love to be able to, bring that back. So sometimes it has to allow me to reflect just a little bit sometimes. But yeah, that was my experience in a macro level position, and I absolutely enjoyed it. I learned so much. I learned so much. I also learned that things don't happen overnight. Um, it takes time. It definitely takes time, especially when you're working on big programs. When you're working on major programs, it really can take a lot, because then sometimes a lot of those major programs, you're coming from more than one. You're coming from multiple funding sources, and it takes time for those funds to be allocated so that you have the go to go ahead and start, implementing and rendering the service. So I really, really enjoyed it. I really did. Yeah. Let me go to the chat. What you say? Oh, Rose said, that's great, Melanie. Yeah, it was. It really was. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed that. I learned so much. I really learned so much about it. Yep. But if we don't have any questions, I'm just going to pretty much end it here. But Rosie, if you still are watching, have you gotten closer to your B-Day plans? Have you got closer? Because the time is ticking, honey. The time is ticking. But tonight, if you are just watching, we talked about macro social work. What is it and what it looks like? So definitely make sure, if you were not able to catch in from the beginning, no worries. I would definitely leave up the replay so that way you get all of tonight's content. So if you've ever been wondering, like, hey, what does macro really consist of? I also talked about some of the roles in different particular position titles, how that some of the macro social work level positions, you will not necessarily see the title social worker in it. They lend to different titles. So you definitely have to be mindful and look and be strategic about looking at the job descriptions. I talked about how also a lot of the positions that I've seen in past time, and even within my job search, that were macro level positions, they offer really good pay, very competitive pay. But you definitely want to look at that and do and complete the market research in your particular region, state, or city that you're in, so that way you can kind of have a more accurate insight about that. But I definitely would say, if this is something you're interested in, do further research. Do further research. And I also mentioned there's a lot of content out there about macro social work. So definitely look at other videos, look at other YouTubers. I know Mind Your Society is one that Gabby, I've been following her for a long time too. She definitely talks a lot about macro level social work. So she's really a good resource, because she has a lot of content surrounding that. So I definitely say check her channel out. And there's a lot of other social workers that have definitely came on the scene, but I've been following her for a long time now. And she has quite a following, and she kind of gives more detailed insight. So I definitely would say that. But I just wanted to give you my experience of what I actually experienced within my role that I had. But like I said, I definitely would say continue the research, and always, just don't take people's word for things. Within this field, it's already stigmatized. So some people have opinions about things that they really have not had experience in. So hear that, because a lot of times people that may have not have had the education of a social worker, or actually go through the process of a social worker, but in a social worker role or a case management role, can sometimes have a negative notation about some of their experiences in being in that role. And I'm not saying that social work is easy peasy, because it's very challenging work. and really no matter what level of practice you're practicing on. But definitely always do your research and make sure that it's valid, that you are trying things true and true, before you just take someone's word on it. I'm not saying that people's word and insight doesn't matter. It does. But I'm just saying if it's negative or, heavily negative, definitely just kind of be curious about taking their insight, but also following up with additional insight as well. She said, "No, I have not. Haha. I'm trying to complete all my assignments before they are due." Oh my goodness, you said you're trying to complete all your assignments before they're due. Okay, okay. And I appreciate that too, Mr. J. Great program. But yeah, he said, "No, I have not. Haha. I'm trying to complete all my assignments before they are due." Yes. So what's the timelines? What's the timelines? Because I know this is what April. Are some of them, do you have a lot of them coming up in May, or are all of your due dates in April? Because it'll be time. It'll be time. What is it, May 22nd? Yes. I love it. But I see the numbers. People are kind of like chiming in and chiming out, which is okay. But like I said, I would definitely be leaving this up for replay. So in the event that you're wanting to get some additional time, or if you didn't get a chance to really listen to all of the details, don't fret, because the video is going to be up and I'm going to keep it up for a replay so that you can always definitely look at it. So definitely, like I said, especially if you're new around here, look throughout the Core Inspirations channel. Like I said, we talk about all things social work as it relates to your career, as it relates to your social work school experience. And I share my expertise in my process of obtaining my BSW, my MSW, and in my current role as a mental health therapist. And like I said, my channel is really student and professional development. I am your social work development coach, and I help you connect the dots from the classroom to your career. And I pride myself in that because I know what it was like, and I know that you need support throughout the many transitions within this process. So if you're a BSW student, definitely reach out to me on Instagram, or if you're MSW, it doesn't matter. Reach out to my Instagram as well, and you can follow me there at Core Inspirations. And I would love to talk with you. If you have any other questions that you may not feel comfortable putting in the chat, or if you just you're a more private person, definitely shoot me a DM and we can talk and we can kind of converse, okay? But without further ado, or what did you say? The papers are due in April and like two presentations. Oh, okay. So you got them due in April. So you got two presentations. And one presentation is due in May 1st. Okay, yes. So how are you feeling? Like, are you burnt out? Because I know when you get to this place, I know with me, I can say, I was excited, but I was like really focused too, trying to like end with a bang. Like, that's my saying, like end with a bang. So how are you feeling? Are you feeling a little burnt out? Or are you just like, I'm energized, May 22nd, out of prize? Like, how are you feeling? So you got some papers due in April and like two presentations. Oh my goodness, presentations. You feel overwhelmed? Oh my goodness, yeah. Yeah, it can be, because it seems like it's just like everything sometimes feel like it's just closing in, you know what I'm saying? And you like, hold up, my graduation, I'm trying to get there. But you are at it, Rosie. You got it, you got what it takes, you can do it. I definitely would say, I think you did say you journal, taking time out, just little moments to say, you know what, celebrating. You know, you can take some pictures and do like a countdown. I don't know if you're interested in that, if you have time to do that, but you can kind of do a countdown and do something to celebrate each day. I'm serious. It could be something as little as a bubble wrap. It could be something as little as I'm going out for ice cream, or something as, you know what, I'm going to, do this, or take pictures and make a collage of all the ways you felt and just put the emotion under there, or something that you can kind of like take the pictures of yourself and then maybe make a collage of 30-day countdown. My faces of my 30-day countdown. Something. She said, using the energy I have left to finish them. Yes, you just like literally like, okay, let me get this done. And annoyed. She said, I just want to be done already. Yes, ma'am. Yup. Because it's like, okay, I've been here, I've done this, had to do this assignment. I don't want to see no more paperwork. I don't want to see no more writing. I don't want to have to revise, review, edit, nothing. I just want to be done. Yep, that sounds great, man. I like the collage idea. Yeah, something that you can do because, like I said, you're going to be in your MSW program one time, and you want to be able to do something that remember, that you can go back and reflect upon all your struggles and your accomplishments and your overall progress in your program. So it's like crunch time. So just know it's normal to feel a little overwhelmed. See what other ways that you can do to kind of like look at your schedule from here and the time frames that you're going to do paper and just try to strategize. But sometimes really at this point it's like pushing yourself, just like fighting that procrastination. I know I dealt with that, fighting through procrastination, fighting through like, oh my goodness, not another paper. Like the motivation is sometimes not there because it's like you're kind of running on fumes. You've done so many different assignments and you're so close to the finish line. It's almost like you can feel it, you can touch it. You are so welcome. Definitely keep me posted. But you all enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you so much for watching tonight's social work sessions live. And I will see you next week. Same time, same place. Talk to y'all later. Have a good one. Good night, Rosie. Have a good one. You got this. Bye. You welcome.